There's a lot of things that you can do to avoid bankruptcy. I think a lot of people think it's really easy. They think the easy answer is, well, just pay your debts. Make money and pay your debts. But it's a lot more complicated than that. A lot of the people who come through our doors were doing very well. But an illness or the economic downturn or a regulation, something out there changed. And a lot of times it's forces beyond a person's control. But there is a lot of things that you can do to avoid bankruptcy. The first thing is have good banking and good record keeping. It's important to have, whether it's a financial professional, an accountant, a bookkeeper, it's important to have a good checks and balances in place and to have that economic information available at your fingertips all the time. And it's important to avail yourselves of that as a person who owns or runs a business, and even in your personal life, to know how much you owe, to whom you owe it, when those payments are due, and what your cash flow is going to be like. Another big thing that happens a lot is always file your taxes. And this includes state, local, and federal taxes. Even if you can't pay them, it is important to always file your taxes, because if you don't file them, you start accruing failure to file penalties, which are very large. And a lot of times, if you do file your taxes, you can then start a dialogue with the taxing authority to work out a payment plan. And we see that a lot with people who come in to talk to us where, because they didn't have that dialogue or they didn't file, now that the penalties and the taxes are so large that they've got to kind of force the hand of the taxing authority to essentially, redo the payment plan, and the only option to do that is bankruptcy. Another thing that's important is to have an employee manual. A lot of businesses, when they're getting started, don't do an employee manual because it is expensive and it oftentimes does take a lawyer. But quite frequently, we see within bankruptcy employee issues. Maybe they're not always necessarily the driver to bankruptcy, but we see these issues, and because there were no guidelines in place and there are no expectations in place for employees, it suddenly becomes the Wild West, and it's not always easy to manage. So I think really having good accounting and bookkeeping, really understanding what your debts are, filing your taxes and working with your taxing authorities, and then having an employee manual is incredibly important.